My next guest is Nicola Mendelsohn, CBE, who is the Vice President, Global Business Group at Meta. Nicola, welcome.
Thank you, Tanya. So delighted to be here with you today.
Thank you so much for joining me here today, Nicola. Of course, Davos, we're back in person. We are marking the second anniversary of George Floyd as well. We just talked about the terrible massacre that happened yesterday. What has been the mood for you here?
Yeah, so before we go into that, I do just also want to acknowledge the terrible, terrible circumstances, the horror, reading, what's been going on in Texas, and just from a personal basis, just really thinking of the families and the community that have been terribly impacted. And also, as you say, the anniversary of George Floyd's murder, which I think changed the world. And so I thought it was fitting and right, and we were stood in the green room behind, just having that moment of silence as well. It's a very different Davos in many ways, right? There's no snow, there's lots of green, we're seeing buildings that we didn't know existed. And I think it's fair to say that, there's many challenges, many headwinds, that conversations with our partners that, people are talking about. But Davos remains a very important moment of people coming together for the World Economic Forum, to be able to come together to imagine the things that we can all do together, both from government, from private sector, from NGOs, coming together to realize that optimistic vision of the world that we want to see. And that's kind of been the things that I've been talking about this week.
Nicola, how did the pandemic impact Meta's business?
So I don't think any of us can, if we'd have gone back 2 years ago and think back to the changes that we've all seen in all of our lives, I think about, the fact that so many in different parts of the world were not able to go out, that, locked down. And so we saw many changes in how people lived their lives, how children were educated often through, the internet, or how people shopped. We saw a very big shift in e-commerce. Many reports talked about 10 years of acceleration happening in just a handful of months. And so many of those habits are going to stay with us. But I think also open up the opportunity for new ways to start to do things, new ways about questioning the ways that we're going to work in the future, the visions of how technology will continue to play a very important part in our lives. And also how much people relied, certainly on Meta's platforms and our services, our family of apps, our hardware products. My family's split around the world. My parents are in Manchester. My boys are studying in the States. Thank goodness for Portal, because we were able to have these dynamic conversations together where the family could come together. We could eat meals and it not feel intrusive because of the nature of that technology. And I had so many people reach out and say that they felt the same. Thank goodness.
Nicola, in late 2021, the company announced its rebranding as Meta, as we know, and it's working towards the Metaverse. Tell me about that. What do we need to know? What world are we going into?
Well, I think it's a very exciting world, but that fully realized vision of the Metaverse is some time off. It's probably at least another 5 to 10 years away. And what we mean by it is that the internet that we've had today has been very flat. It's something that we've looked at. But the Metaverse is going to be something that's much more immersive, that is really going to play with all of our senses. And you're going to be able to do things in the Metaverse that actually you can't do today. So you and I could go straight from here and go fitness training with a personal instructor up Machu Picchu, and it will feel like a proper workout. We're starting to see the applications of this in so many different areas, from healthcare, where we're seeing people practicing surgeries. The change and the transformation in education is extraordinary. The immersive learning that children can have to actually walk down the streets of ancient Rome, or to take a geography lesson and actually go deep sea diving and have that experience when so few children are ever able to maybe go snorkeling or scuba diving. So it's really going to be only limited by our own imaginations. And there's so much promise, way ahead of just what many people tend to think of as just gaming. But it really will encompass the whole of Web3 as we're talking about it today.
Nicola, what do you say to those, though, that if it takes away from personal interaction, communication? We've all been, suffering from the lockdowns around the world, from the pandemic, and couldn't wait to get back in person.
Yeah, and Tanya, there is nothing better than being in real life. The excitement of being here in a room with you, with all these people, it is just wonderful, and there's nothing better than that. But the reality is we do spend a lot of time online now. And it's not to substitute anything that we do in real life, but the time, why wouldn't you want the time online to be so much more enriched, so much more feeling like that sense of when you are together? You know, when I get into, you know, various games or, you know, products that we have at Meta, like Horizon Workrooms, and I sit around a virtual table with my colleagues, and, you know, somebody speaks over here and somebody speaks over, my head's moving around like it does in the real world when we're sat around a table, and you feel that sense of presence. That's what we crave as human beings. That's what we want, and so it really does go towards addressing that.
Nicola, a recent study funded by Meta estimated that the metaverse could add $3 trillion to the global economy after a decade. How did you predict those kind of figures, and when it's still quite far away?
Yeah, so this is independent research, but they were looking at if the adoption rates happen at the same rate at which mobile, you know, the mobile internet has developed, that's how you get there. So it's about a 2.8% increase on global GDP. I think that's exciting. But when you start to think through the business and the economic opportunities that are going to be afforded here, that's how you get to billions and billions of dollars. And it's going to create whole new jobs, whole new business models are going to be created, especially for individuals and especially for creators. So at the moment, there's about 50 million people around the world that consider themselves a creator. Some might have very large followings, some might be niche. But they're creating content, they're getting monetization through this. And the metaverse is going to offer so much more for them. And we're certainly working through those different models with them today, thinking through things like subscriptions, thinking through things like NFTs and how that's going to evolve. So I think it's going to be very exciting. And then, of course, commerce. We're seeing more and more from the commerce side as well that will start to play through in this area.
How do you think it will change job creation?
Oh, I think, you know, if you think back a decade ago and you think through the jobs that now exist, I don't think we can predict all the different jobs. My favorite job that I've heard personally, and you might quite like this one as well, is, you know, your avatar and your presence and how you look is going to be a thing, right? And I've already started playing with mine. And Meta offers now over 1 quintillion different versions of avatars that you could create for yourself. But hey, you're going to want to have different clothes, and we're already seeing luxury brands starting to play in this space. So a job of the future, a pretty near future, is going to be a digital avatar stylist. There you go. I have no idea how you get trained to be one of those, but it's going to be a thing.
Of course, regulation of digital platforms is a key concern. Do you welcome the new legislation by the EU and UK to tackle disinformation and illegal content on platforms such as Facebook?
So as a company, Meta has called for a long time for more regulation in the space. By the way, we already have a lot, but we think it's really important that we're continuing to have the conversations and that regulation evolves because the technology is evolving. Now, the recent legislations that you're talking about are very new. We haven't even seen all the fine print yet, but we've very much been in the conversations, thoughtful conversations around how we see the regulation going. So we'll be looking at it and, of course, complying with it.
Social media platforms like Facebook, Nicola, do get blamed. Online hate, inciting violence, body image, creating very negative attitudes. What do you say to those critics?
What I would say is that as a company, the place that we start is that we want the people that come onto our platforms to enjoy the time that they spend on the platforms. And we know that we have a big responsibility there because we have over 3.6 billion people that are coming onto our platforms. And we're building into everything that we're doing. We have a whole framework, a rules book, if you like, our community enforcement rule book, whereby we're very clear on what our policies are. And if people violate the policies, we take them down. We're also very open and transparent about the progress that we're making. And we publish every quarter a report that sets out across a number of different areas the success that we're having in terms of taking things down. And in every one of those areas, we are making, you know, considerable improvements on that. And we're going to keep doing that. And we're going to keep investing the money. So over the last 5-6 years, we've invested over $16 billion. And today, we now employ over 40,000 people that are absolutely focused on the safety of the people coming onto our platforms.
The European Commissioner for the Internal Market, Thierry Breton, said the time of big online platforms behaving that they are too big to care is coming to an end. What's your response to him?
What I would say is we do care. And I think if you judge us by, the investments that we make, they're considerable. If we didn't care, we wouldn't make the investments like that. And we're absolutely committed to continuing to make those investments, to continuing to make investments in especially artificial intelligence. That's a really important one, and deep machine learning, because ultimately machines can work quicker than people in this area. And so that's what matters to us.
And of course, the tech industry has led the stock markets with significant profits for many years, but a number of tech companies, including Meta, have seen dramatic falls in revenues recently. The share price of Meta was down 7.6%. How do you respond to that, and how concerned are you?
So I think if you look across the whole of industry at the moment, not just tech, it is certainly it's a challenging period when you look at the stock market. And we started this conversation of what's the conversations at Davos. Many industries are talking about the considerable number of headwinds that are facing industry at this time. But the other conversations that I'm having here this week, and I'm having very much with partners, is they want to know about what we can do to help them grow. And they're very excited about the different areas, both in the long term with the metaverse, but much more importantly, the things that we can see and we can do today. Oh, we've got a fly coming in. So that's things like the real shift that we're seeing in the use of short-form video, Reels, on our platform. Now more than 20% of time spent on Instagram is actually on Reels. And actually video as a whole across our platforms is about 50% of time spent. So they want to know about that. They want to know what they can be doing. They're very excited about business messaging. And it's not surprising because we're seeing that more than 100 billion messages are being sent on our platforms every day, and 1 billion every week between businesses and people. So these are the things that they want to talk about because they want to connect to the customers that matter to them, which ultimately will help them to grow.
How do you keep the public trust, though, Nicola? You have Mark Zuckerberg being personally sued for the Cambridge Analytica data scandal back in 2018. When that happens, how do you keep the public on side?
I think it goes down to the products that we have. People come onto our products to be able to connect to their friends, to their families, to the businesses, the entertainment, the sports that matter to them. People love using our products because it helps to bring those people that they love and that they cherish. And most people, when they go onto the platforms, they're seeing the pictures of the babies, they're seeing the pictures of, their friends coming together, me doing these things this week. That's the thing that matters to people, and that's the thing that we're working really hard to make sure we keep delivering the services that people care about.
Do you worry about the image?
It's something that we think about from a business perspective, but we're also very focused on making sure that we're addressing any concerns that people have and keep delivering on the products that people love and enjoy so much.
So many people, though, tend to blame you, not you personally, of course, but these social media platforms, just for everything. Of course, President Trump got banned. Elon Musk, if he does buy Twitter in the end, says that he wouldn't ban him. How do you feel about that and having someone like Elon Musk potentially taking over Twitter?
So it's not going to be for me to say. Many other people are writing all about what Mr. Musk may or may not do with Twitter. So, that's a decision that others will take. And, to the question on President Trump, we were very clear that we set out that after the 2-year period has elapsed, that, a number of people will look at that decision again.
What industries do you think will be changed most by the metaverse?
I think if we go back and take the learnings from Web 2, there hasn't been a single industry that hasn't been disrupted. I think you see industries that change quicker, and we're already seeing a total transformation of the gaming industry. I think we're seeing, and very much based on conversations I've been having this week, many people leaning into education, healthcare, learning, commerce, retail. I mean, look at me, I'm already going through lots of different verticals. So entertainment, many industries will be touched.
And what is your message to the different industry leaders here at the World Economic Forum?
Well, the first thing to do is to get involved, to try it, because you can't imagine as a CEO or a CFO of a business how you'll start to think about investments if you haven't actually immersed and tried, the different products out yourselves. So we're hosting at the Meta House here, opportunities to try Quest, to actually experience different things. So come along, try it is where I would start. But I will also think about what are the building blocks that can get you to the metaverse in that fully realized state? And that's where you come to some of the things that we were talking about today, which is making sure that you're experts in the things that are on our products today, like the messaging, like the reels, like understanding how to work with creators. I think those are some of the paving stones that will get us to that fully realized version.
And attracting advertisers?
Advertisers are certainly very excited about what the potential will be. It's early days. We're already starting to see brands, experimenting. We saw a fantastic example recently from Wendy's, from the burgers, where they created a whole Wendyverse. But actually, they took that best practice of saying, let's take all of the video products across the Meta platform, across Instagram, in-stream, Reels, but then let's go and have this different type of immersion in the Wendyverse. So you and I can go and hang out in the Wendyverse together.
Nicola, what are your hopes going forward, just finally, for the metaverse? And do you think in 5 years' time, you and I might not be sitting here next to each other? We'll be in that?
Well, I think you and I will always find time to have a chat like this, but I think today we could go and have a chat already and do a conversation like this. And I think maybe we should, actually. Let's try that.
And what about for you personally, Nicola? What are your hopes going forward?
For the metaverse, or for the metaverse, that I hope people... The metaverse is going to be built by everyone. It's not going to be built just by Meta or one company. It's going to be multiple companies, different individuals, charities, all different governments, all organizations coming together. I'm excited about all those different people getting involved, getting excited, and realizing that full potential that ultimately will benefit us all.
Nicola Mendelsohn, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Wonderful.